I'll be interviewing Gian, founder of Earth Haven, on his life story. When people think of Earth Haven, the image that comes up is that of nature, sustainability, working with the earth. But as much as Earth Haven is about earth nature, it is also about human nature. These interviews will give you a glimpse into Gian's life and his life story, and how all the different challenges and journeys he went through inspired and fit into the idea of Earth Haven as it stands today. Hopefully, this will give you more information and background into what inspired Earth Haven and also what makes it distinct from any other eco or sustainability project. We will start and go back way to the beginning. Gian, can you share with us where you were born, what your family setup was like?
Well, I'm South African and I was born in Johannesburg in 1990. And that was still during the apartheid days, you know. Apartheid only ended in 1994. And yeah, I was born into a family, normal family, like what you would see normal or what I deemed normal. We lived in a very small town. After my birth, we moved to a small town, and I think the town had like 600 residents. So the streets was empty, and my family would work in the city. So a lot of driving just to get to work. And with that, my setup was basically a house with fields surrounding the house, little other houses around, and yeah, I was just growing up like that. It's
So, apartheid ended in 94, right? Do you remember anything about living in apartheid?
well, since 1990 till 1994. Obviously, as a little kid, I had no idea what apartheid is or that it existed. For me, I was used to what I was living in, my environment, and there was no black and white. There was no, races. Nothing like that existed for me as a kid. And my parents wasn't racist, so there was no like chatting at home about racism or apartheid, and it wasn't something that I remember being fed in those first 4 years. But there is a point in my town that I realized there was something wrong, and this was when I was about 7 years old, and I went to primary school, grade one, and our school was very small. So with that, and at the primary school, um, very small school, very few kids, and everyone was white. Now, for me, I was aware that there was, other different looking people, but I didn't go, oh, they're black and I'm white. It was just they're different color people. But in the school setting, which still comes from apartheid days, there was something very strange. In my classroom, only white kids, white kids, white kids, all the grades, just white kids in the classrooms. And every day at break time, when you go for lunch, when you eat, you have breakfast, I would see this small room that had 30, 40 kids in it that was all of the same color. And they were all different ages in the same classroom. Whereas I know that everyone in my classroom was, 7 years old. In that specific classroom, there was from 7 all the way to 13-year-old kids in the same classroom. And in break time, we couldn't play together. They didn't.
And
They,
this was after apartheid.
yeah, this was after apartheid. So this was very strange for me as a kid. Like, what's happening? Why is these kids in one classroom? First of all, why are they all not coming out to play with us when it's break time, playtime? And what I did see was that the white kids would pick peaches from the tree, and the black kids would pick peaches from the tree. And every now and then they'll have this battle where they are throwing peaches at each other and like laughing, having fun, but always keeping a distance. And I found it so strange. And then I realized one day when I tried to speak to one of these kids, I couldn't understand their language. Like they were not speaking English, and I was not speaking whatever they were speaking. And I now know it's Kosa, so they were speaking Kosa. And I think for that reason, which no one ever explained to me, that they were in a different classroom, and the system is not yet adjusted to accommodate Kosa speaking children in the same schools as white kids, because we were Afrikaans and some English. So that was my first point of like what's happening here. But no one explained, no one said anything, no one told us anything. So I didn't make anything of it. I didn't know what was going on. But that was my first impression of there's something strange, or there was something strange. So that's my first impression of apartheid, if you want to call it that, without knowing that was apartheid or the effects of apartheid.
When apartheid ended, did it like directly affect your family? I know a lot of South Africans were afraid of.
Yes. Also, again, as a kid, I didn't know what was going on. I just know when I was 4 years old, my parents moved to New Zealand with us. And
When you say us, like how many children were you in the
it's
family?
me, my two brothers, my mom, and my dad.
And you were the
And
middle child.
I was the middle child, yeah. So, with this in '94, which was when apartheid ended, we moved to New Zealand. But things happened there, and we couldn't stay in New Zealand. And 3 months later, we had to come back to South Africa. And I remember people were more fearful, more locking doors, closing windows, doing more security checks of what they do and where they do things. I remember as well between 4 and 7 after coming back from New Zealand that uh, there was a lot more crime. People were talking a lot more crime. There was a lot more break-ins. There was a lot more gangsterism and stuff happening.
Because I was going to ask, like, the ending of apartheid. When you're looking at it from the outside, it's like, well, that's a good thing, right? Because we're going towards more inclusivity. Why would your parents decide to leave when that is seen as a good thing? Can you share a bit about that?
Uh, well, obviously, if you look at well, from my perspective, and with apartheid ending, which is good for equality, movement, free movement for all, equal votes. But I think the fear was that, from my perspective, they didn't do it right. How they ended apartheid. They basically told people, you're free to now live and do everything without actually giving people something to do that, which was money. And with this, you actually send a lot of people with poverty into the world, into a system that was only managed by white people. And with that, there's crime. There's gangsters, and there's everything is just booming with all the negative stuff, because it's like you're telling people, okay, the jobs you had, the things you had under apartheid, that's ending now because apartheid's ending. So you better fend for yourself now. And with that, the townships, the police, everything was just, you know, creating conflict because people didn't have access to money.
So was there also like a fear of retaliation from?
Yeah. Yeah, if you look at Mandela said forgiveness. Mandela said, change. Mandela said we have to forgive to move forward. But if you look at the anger and the hate and all of that has been accumulating for decades in apartheid, obviously it has to come out somewhere. It's going to come out somewhere. If we just look at the concept of jealousy, now if you take people that's been suppressed and denied a piece of the pie, and everyone else has a piece of the pie already, and you send them into the same dining room and they don't have pie, they're gonna grab it. They're gonna also want it because no one's just giving it to them. No one's just sharing with them. And with that, it's like more anger, more resentment, because for decades you have to watch people having cars, beautiful houses, clothes, education, and you don't have it. And now you're free to have it, but you can't have it yet because you don't have access to it. So that creates crime. And yeah, then you obviously also had your revolutionary people, that actually did threaten with killing all the white people and threatening the white people that they're gonna kill them all. and there was talks of that. There was conversations between the people I heard that I was in the police.
Yeah, because both of your parents were in the police force at the time, right? Do you think that that also added into why they were inclined to leave? Like, did they have, in a way, like a particular perspective of society and how things were moving that prompted them, like, oh, this could go
Yeah.
sideways?
So I don't have all the context of everyone, but the context I do have, I'm gonna share, and it's not my context, not my perspective. It's just what I've heard. Um, from when you look at when people were fighting for freedom in South Africa, there was a lot of brutality. There was a lot of hate. There was a lot of violence, and with that, people started defining other people very violent. For example, the black people in apartheid, they would do things like necklacing, where they put a tire around their own people and burn them alive. And they would even, in some cases, after burning them, cut their flesh and eat it. And they will do these things open in public to instill fear, to instill uh, a sort of a dominance point to show the white people, like, we have no morality. We're gonna fuck you up if you don't stop inequality. And so hearing all these stories and seeing these things on the news and how they kill each other, especially tribal murders, was happening a lot in apartheid, where the Xhosas and the Zulus or any tribe, they would actually have battles with machetes and spears and stab and kill each other in the fields. And I remember from people in the police force sharing these stories, sharing these little wars that the tribes have, where they brutally butcher each other, and no one really talks about that.
Right, because when most people think of South Africa, they just think like, oh, apartheid was just whites and blacks, but they don't consider how, for instance, there was the English in the white population, there was the Afrikaans in the white population. You even had Portuguese and like
Yeah,
a whole different. You had lots of different like
I mean, one
subcultures
one
within that,
thing.
and the same with the black people. There's lots of different tribes
Yeah,
in within the black
for
population.
example, in my town I grew up in Vereniging, the white Afrikaners hated the English white people. Like, we did not like English white people. We would call them names, like uh, the Afrikaners would call them us, the salties and the rednecks, and that we would hate them because we had two wars with them, with the English, the Afrikaner Boere, and there was this hate, this because they put our children, our women of our culture, in concentration camps. They raped and murdered and tortured our children, women from our uh, cultural white people, Afrikaners. So there was this hate towards the English, um, more than, I would say, than what we had towards black people. From just hearing people talking and how people were talking and behaving. This was around me because I was in that uh, society, that cultural environment. So yeah, what I picked up was there was a lot of. It wasn't just racial; it was more like what you've done to us, kind of hate. And I didn't hear so much hate towards black people for a specific reason. Because when I started growing up, obviously black kids, colored kids, Indian kids, we were all in the same schools, we were friends, it was a different change, it was a little bit different. But we didn't like English white people in where I was. But that also changed over time as time went by, because we were mixing more, and we were kind of living forgiveness. So yeah, there's a lot of conflict. I mean, you should see in school even when you have a Zulu kid, a Xhosa kid, they don't like each other for some reason. If you look at uh, just how many crimes happen against tribes, it's like there's a older hate, violent hate towards each other from previous things.
So you mean also like before apartheid?
yeah, before apartheid, and when apartheid in, it's like everything just like came out again because apartheid was kind of containing a lot and controlling a lot. So after apartheid just came out, and later on, when we got to the farm, the Destiny farm, we experienced this ourselves. All the tribal fights, and just people working on the farms wanting to kill and murder each other because they're from different sides of the river. So you start seeing more and more how there's something deeper going on than just apartheid, than just what the white people were doing to the black people. And yeah, so you learn a lot, you see a lot.
All right, thank you, Gian. So in this interview, we kind of situated Gian where he was born, what the kind of political climate was, the different social tensions. And in the next interview, we'll go more into his actual childhood experiences that were influential in having created Earth Haven.
Yeah,
Thank you very much for listening. Thank you again for sharing.
I just want to clarify that I'm sharing stories. This is not who I am, it's not what I stand by, all of the points I'm sharing. It's just how it was. So take it as it is. Thank you very much.